This video is going to begin with a 25-minute music video by one of our awesome facilitators, Michael Garfield. Check it out.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for having me. Great to see everyone for another fun weekend. I hope you have been treating yourself so far. I mean, how fun is that? I am just going to emphasize it's so fun to already see all the upgrades and the experience and just such a blast. So I know for those who are joining us and engaging, I took a moment to drop the link where I want you to all join us in our conversation in the Jamboard. And so look out for it. If you are watching here, I'm like, wait, where are we supposed to join? Join us there. I see some of you joining. And I'll take you into what I am sharing that. So give me 1 second as I look out for it. Well, the first question I want to raise is, actually, before I even share this screen, first circling back to you, Dan, tell me a little bit what's been standing out to you so far in this process. Now that we're almost like halfway through, or is it like early part of halfway through and how our journey is? What's standing out to you so far before we check in with our community? Love it. And JP, from your side, is there any topics that you're seeing a bit of buzz more from the participants that you think is really exciting to hear?
This round, I mean, it's different than the last time we were together. We were all focusing on COVID-19. I think this round, the creativity and the breadth of interest in complex systems generally now, I think that's what's kind of inspiring to me this round. Last time we had this really kind of narrow focus, and this time the diversity of our crowd is brought together. So I'm really excited and inspired by that.
And Sean, I'm curious to hear from your side. I mean, seeing also the diversity we have in the group, like, I'm curious, what are topics that you're hoping that we could flesh out and hear more from the participants so far?
I just have to go back, sorry, to the guy. It's just blowing me away. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not answering the question directly. It's like, it's been so much fun. I've been like just popping in and out of different groups and like ferrying people around, and I like installed secret little Tetris games that people can find. And it's just been like, this time is just so next level with the flipped classroom dynamic we had this time, where we got a lot of the talks and stuff kind of out of the way early so people can consume that in their own time. And the weekend is just interactions. And there's been so many topics that I want to dig deeper into that it's kind of hard to answer your question, because it's just all flowing like all around my head right now. But I will try to think about it some more and get back to you on that.
Thank you for jumping in, all three of you. And so for those who have not met me, the reason why I'm even asking these questions before I even introduce myself and share a little bit more about what I'm about to do is because one of the things I care a lot about is with my expertise as an entrepreneur in innovation is how do we rethink about how we work online, how do we do collaboration online, and as you're experiencing this event, doing this online is very different if we had to do this in person. And so you'll get a chance to hear from me both on any of the videos, but also for today's conversation, where how can we check in within the group to hear where your journey is so far so that we can think differently, connect more meaningfully, and explore how we make this interactive experience more intentionally. And so I got a couple questions. I want to hear from all of you. So again, if you are scattered around the different places, please take a moment to join us in the Jamboard because I want to hear now from all of you and how you are feeling and experiencing right now. And so I see some of us are there. Maybe if I can get some help so that others can join us in the link.
Sure. Monica, can you actually post in the October one? You actually posted in May.
Oh.
So, just repost kind of what you did in October. That would be awesome. We'll get everyone on board.
And just while Monica is posting that, the goal of this Jamboard session, for those of you who are watching it live as well as in replay, is to just get a glimpse of the landscape of teams that are forming and really make clear signposts where people can join teams that are still in formation. So no worries if you don't feel like you've been on a team that's bound towards formation yet. This is what we're here to talk about right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as we are waiting for folks to join in, for those who are here, I encourage you, if you can join me on the second slide. I want to hear from you how you are doing so far. So as we just checked in, we got to hear about where the progress is. Halfway through, you've got a chance to learn some new things, get to meet some folks online. But really, how are you doing so far? And I know we're still waiting for folks to access the link. So just going to click in. Everyone should be able to edit real time. So as you're joining in, if you have not used Jamboard before, this is the way how you can leave sticky notes and say, I'm doing great and really enjoying this opportunity. So would love for you to all join and share real time how you are doing. But maybe I'll circle back to check in with your organizers here real time. I mean, like, Dan, for you, how are you feeling right now? What has been your highlight so far, in addition to what you shared earlier?
I think just from a scheduling perspective, I really like how the flipped classroom allows us to have a real focus on the interactivity during the weekend, and we can just truly and authentically emphasize that everyone can take breaks, all sessions are optional, people are there to connect with you 24/7. It just reduces a lot of the stress and the go when there's a lot of content back to back.
That experience makes it very different indeed. JP, what about for you? What's something that you're enjoying the most?
Well, I think that Daniel and Sean have already touched on it. I really like Gather as this virtual meeting space, giving what would otherwise just be a bunch of Zoom rooms or a bunch of Jitsi rooms or a bunch of virtual we're heads in boxes. As I said before, giving this thing a spatial dimension and being able to pop in and out, and one of the things that real conferences are so nice about is you do have this spatial dimension, right? So taking that and that, kind of virtualizing it, it makes it really, really fun for me. And being able to go into a room, somebody's talking in the room, this is great, and then going out of it, just I almost feel like a real conference organizer in that respect. Really, really cool.
I love that. And that's, I think, a true reflection of what we're also already seeing here, because real time in a conversation, we can have multiple people talking and it should be okay. And I think that's always been a bit of an awkward thing on video, right? Because you need one person speaking at a time. And so I hope that this is one way we're going to hear from all of you real time, 19, 20 plus of you. You're already here. And I'm taking a look at what's being shared. I mean, Tired by Wire, that's great. I love you sharing it. Love meeting great people here, finding my footing, feeling connected. And, Sean, I want to circle back with you. Connecting truly at this time during COVID, I mean, I think it's extra special. What are moments where you're being reminded when you had certain conversations that, like, yeah, I truly feel connected. I know it's online, but like, this makes me feel connected. Tell me some examples.
I can just see people's faces light up. Like I think especially if they haven't really experienced Gather yet, or they just kind of just jumped in, and then they're like, oh, I'm in a video chat. Oh my God, I'm walking around. Like, and their faces just light up, because it's like, you can tell a lot of us haven't had this that much recently. And so it's just kind of like, this is what it's like to like have a community and be able to just walk around. And the types of interactions I've been having have been so fun because they're so dynamic. Like, I'll bring someone over into the bar. That's a secret, by the way. That's where Tetris is. And you go in, and I'll sit there and I'll play Tetris with them. We'll just chat about whatever. And then the Tetris game will end, and I'll be like, oh, I have this really cool reference I like saw recently, and we'll like share our screen and kind of look at it. And then we might like walk over somewhere else to go check out what's in office hours. And it's just flowy. It's nice.
I love that. And that's truly a real reflection of what it's like real time. I'm seeing a few other dots here. I think a reflection of that, in addition to glowing. I mean, people are sharing that they're feeling great, challenged. They're interested in different things. Nice new online platform, getting or sticking wind of things and following up. And yes, late in Europe, but best online conference. That is great to hear. And I would just want to add the other huge bonus, especially as somebody who usually does workshop speaking and travels all the time, is that it's kind of incredible. Like, I can be in my PJs and still be here live with all of you. And it doesn't matter what time zone you're all at, as long as our intentionality of being present and us navigating the tech tools to find what could be interactive and meaningful for all of you. With that being said, I mean, we already got a little bit of peek from Dan saying, like, well, we also want to make sure you get to join your team. So glad we got to do the emotional check-in and how you're doing. But tell me a little bit more. What are the questions and problems you actually want to solve further. I say that in the context, I know some of you, it looks like, has already formed some teams, have already been exploring in that initial conversation, but let's openly first hear, because I think, again, the beauty of this group is that we have such diversity. We have such audience who's interested in all these different topics. So again, if you're just joining the Jamboard link now, take a moment to slide over to slide 3 so that you can now put your thoughts on problems that you're noticing that you want to solve. Maybe even it's a theme, maybe you don't have the answers, but what's coming to your mind that you really wish in the next few hours this weekend that you want to dig deeper? And I'm going to actually circle back here as well. I mean, JP, for you, like, is there any other like new topics that you feel like, even for you, if you were a participant, that you are being more curious compared to where you were like 6-7 months ago? Because the way we're working online, the way we're problem solving complexity is evolving even more. So I'm curious if there's new questions that's emerging for you.
Some of the fun ones that come up for me are, you know, when we get together in a complexity work group, if you will, are those intersections and the blending of disciplines almost. So, you know, one of the kind of fun ones that came up is like, how is law like a genomic expression? You know, I think stuff like that is kind of fun. And, you know, how do genes code? How do laws code like genes code and stuff like that? You know, so I just think it's, you know, kind of, you know, the weird and wacky stuff that's kind of out there that, you know, you take a go out on a limb to get there, you know, and sometimes it's a joke, you know, but sometimes those things end up, you know, kind of with the more meaningful explorations and pushing the boundaries, if you will, you know. So stuff like that, you know, I just really enjoy the space, really enjoy the people, really enjoy the, you know, curiosity and the willingness to play. So.
Thank you for sharing that. Sean, what about for you? Is there anything new questions that you've been wondering lately?
I think the main question I've been kind of pondering for a while, and probably a lot of people, at least in like the US and probably some other countries that maybe are experiencing this phenomenon of the breakdown in dialogue, where it's just really hard to kind of find a consensus anymore, or like a real set of basic facts we can all kind of work from and stuff like that. It's just such a breath of fresh air to talk to everyone here, where we are all so different, but we are listening to each other and we're open and we want to learn. And I think those are just things that broader society, at least depending on which country you're coming from, it needs to be emulated more in our country. Like it's just a breath of fresh air. And I'm just loving all of the creativity and openness and co-learning.
It makes such a difference, I think, when we are in a room, to know what it's like to be heard. And I want to emphasize that because I think, especially at this time, as both of you have alluded, we're seeing that gap. And if we saw that gap in person before, it's just been more visible now. And the opportunity is, how do we use not only this experience as a participant for us to think and reflect on those questions, and actually go deeper into the layers of the type of complexity and challenges that we want to resolve and reflect upon. And so as we've been chatting, I've been really excited to see the nuances and comments that I'm seeing in our whiteboard here in Jamboard. So taking a quick shout out on a few topics, like one, in fact, what we just spoke, there are people who brought it up, which is like, how do we grow sustainable community practice online? Even doing this sustainably, I mean, I know already just from the back end, the three of you have put so much work in the past, whatever amount of X number of hours that you've already put in, and the whole community. And that question of sustainability is really key, because everyone who's probably here is building something real time constantly. And we cannot have you guys burn out. Like, we absolutely need to think about this sustainability question. How do we connect with people around the world, right? It's one thing we just experience demons, but the whole other thing in the long run. Sustainability, I keep seeing this word in all these comments. How do we quantify systematic risk? Absolutely. Applying complexity science and system thinking to political and education systems. Absolutely. So I'm hearing the word sustainability, both directly and indirectly. I mean, is this coming a bit of a surprise, or is something like, yeah, that's kind of what I thought for both of you? How does it feel, Sean?
I think like that's also where we're at. Like, you know, depending on where you're at, you know, you might have this breakdown of dialogue, but also I think universally, almost every country, you're probably experiencing some dialogue around things aren't sustainable. like right now. And that is, so I think it's in the back of everyone's mind to some degree. I really like what you were saying, Monica, though, about just the one that says how to grow a sustainable community practice. You know, like I like to say, like for us, our system that we're unpacking complexity into is the complexity weekend community itself and the initial conditions and the structure. And so that's top of mind for us too, because it is a lot of work to put this on, and it is very, I think, valuable. And we are hoping that people are having a really enjoyable time as a participant, as a facilitator, so much so that they may actually see a vision of a shared future where they can step up and be an organizer, and we can start to really scale up this experience for anyone who might want to participate. I think that is awesome.
Also, just a point of
Absolutely.
process.
JP, did you want to add anything else?
Oh wait, first, Monica. Some people are reporting that
Yes.
they've lost access to the Jamboard. So maybe the sharing settings somehow changed a little bit.
Oh, yes.
So let's just figure that out. And meanwhile, maybe JP, you can continue.
Sure. You know, that's speaking of access to the Jamboard, I think that's one of the things that I've been inspired by, you know, in creating a sustainable community, if you will. And sustainable is one of those words that we have to kind of, I keep going back to Tom Carter's keynote, because he said, you know, we have words in different fields that have the same spellings, but drastically different meanings, you know? So for me, sustainability in the context of our community, it's creating a space that we can all go to with a low threshold to enter, you know, where we can all participate. So using the Jamboard, for instance, using Jitsi, using, you know, Gather, and all these, you know, all these pretty easy things to get on board with. You know, especially Keybase, we have that as kind of the river that you can go back to, as I've said before in the past. You know, so you have these things where it always exists, just like, you know, using this Jamboard now, you open up the space for people and they post in it, you know, giving people the space to work, I think is space to work and the community to work with. And, you know, it's the clubhouse you can always go back to meet people from your community. I think that's a really important aspect of how we do, you know, just like the one on that left side says, how we do this sustainably. It's provide access and make it easy to get to. So for me, that's a big part of it.
Perfect. And
Thank
also,
you for sharing that. And it's real.
Yep.
Yes, Dan.
People have rejoined.
Did we get
Monica.
the link correctly now?
Yep. Perfectly done. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah. Awesome. So with that, I do want to tie in again. You have access to this to continue to look back. And before we even talk about teams, the reason why having this conversation is important is that it's a reminder of like where we are right now, where we are collectively, and what are the opportunities that we want to explore together. So again, yes, one weekend out of the bazillion things that's going on in our life is probably not going to be enough to talk about every amazing thing we just even spoke about, and all of you have expressed in the whiteboard. But that being said, there's an opportunity to build on this. And so with this intentionality, I now invite you all to the next slide to share a little bit about how your team formation is going. And again, the intention is that we don't want to be just jumping into teams immediately. Like, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that. Like, the reason why I want to take the time is know where you're at right now. How are you feeling? What's the intention? And I frame that not only to talk about our conversation here, but encourage you as an example what I hope you can do when you form your groups. Because it is tempting, let's be honest, guilty problem solvers out here, right? We like to problem solve. We want to get immediate solutions. But as we all just even reflected verbally and as you shared on the Jamboard, is that there's a lot of nuances to it. And so as you're taking a moment to share, you know, the teams that have formed, please share it. If you are still looking for a team, put your username and team name, and so that you can express, hey, I'm still looking to join. If you're wanting to build a team and like need to find people, like maybe share that title and that handle too. And so as you're sharing that, I just want to take a moment to honor that this whole experience is going to give us a reminder of like, how do we walk the talk of not seeing complexity as a concept, but something that we experience real time in philosophies that we integrate into our work environment and the way we collaborate and build teams together. And so a few was already alluded, how we think about sustainability, how we communicate, how we think about replicating moments, But I'm curious what other things are coming to mind. And so as you're taking a moment again to share, this is where I want to join my team, this is what I'm excited about. We're going to keep chatting a little bit more that I hope it inspires you and maybe, oh, you know what, now that I'm listening to you guys speak, I want to solve this problem. Like, this is where I'm at. Like, I want to join this group. And so I'm going to now check in, actually, JP, for you, thinking about, especially from last time, what are some advices that perhaps you would want to share with teams and questions that will be helpful for them?
I think one thing that we alluded to when we started this project in our first day was we talked about the deep time aspect of what we're doing, and I want to kind of emphasize that it's not just the seeds are planted now and they stretch out from here to eternity, and somewhere down the road we're going to do something. I think part of it is exploring what we have just in the now. I really like the idea of cross-pollination, active pollination. So maybe, in our virtual meeting space and gather, take a break and walk up to some people and find out what they're doing too. Because a lot of the fun collaborations that we encounter are just the serendipitous meetings that we catalyze as we bump into somebody else and say, well, what are you working on? What are you working on? And try to find the bridges between those things. And for me, a lot of the seasoning to this event occurs in that serendipitous space. So I think that's key about it. We're all coming at this under the umbrella of complexity, and a good question I always start with is how do you find out about this group and what is your interest in complexity? And for me, a lot of that can just inspire so much conversation and sends you down the rabbit hole of finding mutual interests. So I think that's a very valuable healthy environment, healthy community to be in. So.
I love that reminder, because it truly reflects, yes, spontaneity, and that's, you don't go to somebody and says, hey, you seem like a nice person. Can you be my best friend? Can you be my mentor? Like, that's not how things are formed. And I think even formed with teams, like, hey, use these tools, use these different ways of channels of communication that we built the platform for you to find those spontaneity. And that leads me to my next question that I would love to ask Sean is like, while somebody might still be listening, they're like, okay, well, yes, and I still don't know what challenge I want to work on. I don't know what team to join. Like, where do I start? Sean, what advice do you have to share to this person?
I think the approach I'd probably take is, take it one step at a time, right? One little iteration, or like one little movement at a time. And the very first movement you could do is just try to identify what I like to call like team seeds. It's just like a potential team, a potential topic I'm interested in, an explore channel I decided to join, and cast that net, like cast 5 or 6 of these nets, like really go out there and put these feelers out. And as long as you're graceful about entering and exiting teams, right? Saying like, well, I looked at 3 team seeds and I actually ended up deciding I wanted to join one. And you could just tell the other 2, like, it was really great listening. I learned a lot, but I am actually going to focus maybe my time for the rest of the weekend on this other team. But put that net out of multiple things, because not only does it give you better odds of that one of them is really going to pan out, but it also is kind of in line with a lot of our values we're talking about, which are diversity. And by basically having everyone kind of cast a bit of a net on potential teams that they might join, I think we're going to end up at the end of the day with teams that are much more diverse and much with a much more robust set of people in them.
And actually, to follow up on that, can you give some advice for somebody who's like, okay, we're forming teams. Is there any like number limits or like too much, too many? Oh, somebody wants to emphasize the session. That's great. Go ahead. Any advice on that, Sean? As like, if they're like, oh, do we have too many people right now? Like, yes, we need more help. Like, I
think the only thing to keep in mind there is there's a natural dynamics to teams, right? It's a social system, right? And I'll tell you a story, I guess. One time I did Startup Weekend, right? And I did Startup Weekend with some friends of mine in the tech scene in Vegas at the time, when it's still building up, but like when it was building up a lot at the time. And I joined a team with 8 people total on the team, doing a high-growth startup weekend style team, which is normally canonically 3, right? The hacker, hipster, hustler, right? And so everyone was like, "What the hell are you guys doing?" And it was really fun because we were 8 people, which meant at the time we were trying to build a mobile app that let you order without having to go stand in line, and kind of have an iPad kind of handle the orders. And when we decided on a solution, we hit it like a hammer. Like we implemented it basically instantly, like over 2 days, because it was so many people. But having a team that's 8, there's a reason why they kind of say, hey, you know, that's not a great idea, because, you know, at some point naturally we fractured, right? We split, because that's a lot of people to keep kind of coordinated, especially for things like sweat equity and stuff that happen a lot at the beginning of projects where you're not getting paid yet and you're just volunteering basically and trying to set up something. That's a lot to ask of 8 people to remain in that situation. So just keep in mind the dynamics, and you can start with 10, you can start with 2, you know, whatever it is, just know there's going to be a natural flow to the way things shake out.
I appreciate you sharing that, because yes, indeed, for those who are more have any experience of startup weekend, hackathons, and experience like that, the beauty is that, as you know, even when JP highlighted the spontaneity, is that you're going to know by the end of it, like, where the synergy and like everyone's strength and weakness come together. It's not going to be as crystal clear from the beginning, which how perfect it alludes to probably the complexity concept, right? Like just understanding through that journey. And so kind of piggyback on that, as individuals right now who are listening and appreciate with the post-it that we added, you can also, if you want to share a little bit more about these are all the different topics I'm interested. Yes, you can absolutely share that in Keybase. I see already 1 or 2 folks sharing that and sharing like, these are topics I want to work on. Is anyone forming a team? Do that. Find different ways to build on that. But you know, JP, I'm curious, especially from those who might be still newer to complexity, and as you're learning through this, is there any like, again, complexity philosophies that you could remind us and how they bridge teams that could be helpful for them to also learn and remember that concept? And I loved some analogies that we spoke about last time, but anything that's standing out to you?
Well, really, one of the things I'm seeing, you know, people are interested in topic areas, and people are interested in kind of like these big broad fields, and they're like, I want to learn about this, or I want to do a team about, you know, this cities, for instance, or something like that. You know, and I think as time goes on, people will create their own interesting questions within those topics, exactly what interests them. And I think then you know, we might see, you know, several teams forming from those core ideas, you know, and a way of kind of one of the main splits in complexity is complexity a tool set or is it a philosophy? And in my eyes, it's both. You know, we have these tool sets like nonlinear dynamics and, you know, big data and things like that, that are the tools that we use to explore the space of complexity. And then there's also like the philosophy of like, we're doing complexity, you know? So I think a lot of the interesting dynamics that occur after people come together with shared interests are, do we have our tools that we use to analyze what we're looking at, or do we have like a topic area that we kind of want to like refine and actually get to some kind of kernel there that we can actually kind of then explore. You know, so I think that's a fun way of looking at this team formation process. And you know, it's all creativity. It's all good in my eyes. You know, somebody comes in and they want to try a new methodology. They just that's equally valid to exploring spaces of complex systems problems.
I love that reminder that if you are listening and you feel like, oh, I thought this is the way to do it, or wait, I'm not sure, you're absolutely okay. This is all good. You are in the right place where you are. And through that, the key is the learning, the asking, staying open, curious along the way. But Sean, I'm curious still, this is probably my project management, like type A hat, still like always curious. It's like, okay, but is there a certain point that I should just commit to like a team and like move forward? Like there's an exploratory like abundance day, but unfortunately, because we just have the weekend, like what's the time point of view from, I guess, PST time zone that I should note that, okay, at this point, I should make sure I like decide, or like we should decide as a group?
Yeah, great question. Check the program, right? The deadline, if there is a deadline, is 3 p.m. Pacific time Sunday is really when we're all going to celebrate the teams that have emerged up to that point. And we're going to invite the teams to come on to live stream and share their process so far. And I think, you know, that is kind of the end cap, right? Like if you want to be on a team, that's really where your destination should lead to. What we're kind of suggesting as a potential range that's open and inclusive to people from other time zones joining, and the kind of evolution of these teams over the weekend is, you know, starting now basically through maybe like 10 a.m. Sunday might be a good time to try to have something by then would be the best window potentially. You could, it's not set in stone, 11 a.m. or whatever. It's not a big deal. We just want to give you a little bit of time to kind of collect yourselves and have some sort of internal truths before. And again, it's not a competition on Sunday at 3. It's just sharing your process up to that point. But just we want to have a little bit of time to be able to collect before that.
I love that reminder. And again, just for context, right now, I know some might be rewatching this video, but if you're saying 3 p.m., how much time do folks have right now?
No. I don't even know.
Is that like an hour from 2 hour?
Let's say
you're talking about on Sunday? 3 on Sunday.
We have about 20
for
hours.
Today.
Yeah, well, from right now, from about 1:30 p.m. Pacific to about 10 a.m. Pacific, it's about 20 hours from this live stream. And also just looking at this set of Post-it notes, it's a perfect distribution. We have teams that are starting to form and hopefully are going to be really inclusive of people who join on later. There's so many of you who want to join a team, so connect with each other. This is the people who you will be connecting to form teams with. And then on the right side, I want to build a new team on this challenge. This is like even earlier stage of ideation. And these are all just the full spectrum of innovation. And then we're going to carry you from that right side. I want to build a team to I want to join one. And then you're going to be on a team looking for members. You're going to present on Sunday. And then we're going to carry you forth long term.
And to add to that, when your team is ready, you have this link here that you can register your team. So open this link and copy it. And this is where you can register your team. I know for those, if you've been following earlier, you've probably got a preview of that link. But basically, at that point through the process, I'm wondering, and Dan, if I can circle back with you, if somebody is like, wait, I submitted my form, but then we have new team members. Is that still okay, I assume?
Yes, so the form is still editable, and that's how we help respect that the teams have fluid composition. And so as soon as you have a core set of people who are going to commit and respect each other's time over the weekend and look forward to working together, then step out and really help somebody else along their complexity journey and give them a scaffold to be within, because some of us are really great at setting that first team structure outline, making the Keybase team, making the calendar meetings, and other of us will just succeed so beautifully once we're within that scaffold. So let's all come together on that.
Thank you for reminding and highlighting that. And as you're all sharing, I am real time editing the scope because we have more people at the moment looking to still find team members. Again, use this as a reference to come back. But as Dan said, if you have found your team, you can now delete your name and then say, this is our team name. And in fact, to actually scroll to the next page, when you have formed your team, do take a moment. I'll look out for the submissions that you do. And so we will real time add your names here so that we can see what are the teams that are being formed. Because I'll be honest, unlike a real event where, or not an in-person event, where you can see, in-person event, when you see physically how many teams are formed, it's a little hard to see. So we're going to help you do that. So when you submit, that's part of the reason why, that you can get a sense of like, ooh, actually, now that I see these different team names, I can join, or I can take a look. And so there's multiple ways to look. But in the time being, as you are continuing to fill out, again, where you are with the teams, I thought it would be great to take a moment to share some advice, because we've already alluded to some suggestions, but a couple of things that I want to also add in regards to this whole thing is we all come from different ways of working, different ways how we communicate, different comfort levels, different technology comfort, different knowledges. And so the curious mindset voice is, how do we use that as an opportunity to learn from one another instead of like, oh, like, why is Sean not logging on? Like, Sean is always late. Or like, wait, JP always has that like voice in the echoing, like, can't he fix it? Like, oh, like Monica's always like using this thing, but she's not looking at the camera. Like, instead of letting that voice, like, what can you use as a curiosity? It's like, oh, I wonder why. Like, maybe that text setting, hey, that reminds me, maybe our users actually have that pain point. Like, how can we use that as an opportunity to think about what our users would actually need if they need a more simplified solution? Like, how would it look like if we need to think about 3 different stakeholders with bigger families versus somebody who doesn't have internet as much, somebody who actually has like a transportation passing by nearby all the time, so it's very noisy. Like, how would their user experience be different? And so I encourage you, every time you have those differences that you notice, bring your curiosity voice to say, how do we use this as an opportunity, again, to understand this complexity, know these uncertainty with wonderment and curiosity, and assuming kindness to that. But to build on that, I mean, Sean, I'm curious, like, what's standing out to you? I mean, you guys have been working online to even do this whole event in the preparation. Like, what's standing out to you, and what advice you would share with the teams that's being formed now?
I mean, I keep bringing everything back to we are just another team, and that our system is this particular community or this particular 6-month hackathon with 1-month heartbeat. And so just like every other team, we have our dynamics and we figure out how to work together. And it really does come down to what you were saying, which is respecting and understanding everyone's different perspective, background, role, the way they like to contribute, their strengths, and really finding that team composition that makes you stronger together. And in May, I remember we had an amazing conversation on the live stream which I want to recreate, not here, but later, about role-playing games and teams as role-playing parties. Who's the barbarian on your team? Who's the wizard? Really, really get into it about these different roles and diverse sets of properties and what they bring to the table. And when a fight starts and initiatives are rolled, what do you expect the team members to kind of do to handle it?
Love that. Love that. Reminders that we all have our different strength and weakness. And again, just to take a quick look again, as we're continuing to speak, we're seeing more folks putting in their notes. So this is fantastic. Continue to share your inputs and where you want to join, what challenges you want to solve together. But we're going to continue to share some advice, because as you're forming it, there's other questions that come to mind. I'm curious, Dan, if you're there, I would love if there's any advice you found in communication that you'll love to highlight.
Sure. I would just think about it from a technical and a psychological level.
It goes in the machine, and he's
I actually will be able to be on the live stream, so just to sort of continue and know that you will all roll with it when you hear it. On the technical side, just make sure that the platform that you're using and that the choices that you're making for the scheduling are accessible for everybody. So really take the time to check and see which video conferencing platform or which time of day is going to work for everybody. And then also just psychologically, just remember that everyone's coming from a different place in their journey, and that coming together in the team means that you're going to be having a lot of feedback and communication. So over the weekend, just focus on the healthy habits and on the culture of co-creation and co-ownership, because if somebody is not feeling like a co-owner on a project, they're going to ghost. So make sure that you build co-ownership and co-creation. And that's not only the way to have the best innovation, but really the way to make sure that your team lasts a long time.
Absolutely. And for those who know me, one of my favorite words is co-creating. Absolutely need to co-create. This is why we are co-creating this hour with all of you by real-time participating. So thank you, 39 plus friends who are joining in the Jamboard live with us to co-create this hour by sharing your advice and perspective. And again, this page as well is editable. So as you're listening and rewatching this, you know what? This is an advice I want to share. Please, put your post-its, leave your thoughts. In the time being, I'm going to check in with JP. Like, I'm curious from your side, is there any other thing that you would advise in how they maybe make sure they integrate the complexity perspective into the process as a team?
I was kind of amused at what Sean was saying. It's like we all have our roles to share. I feel like the bard sometimes, where I'm just kind of like in the background supporting something like that. But I think the nice thing about the complexity perspective is that it keeps in mind that we're all experts in our own domains, but we're all coming together under the umbrella of this thing we call complexity to try to contribute towards a better understanding of everything. So for me, that's a real almost a democratizing perspective on how we come together as teams. Because in my eyes, I'm still hung up on this question that RJ once asked, and it was like, what's most important, intention, mission or goal, or narrative? And I chose intention, despite the fact that everyone else doesn't like intention. because I think that it's important for people to come at interdisciplinary work with a degree that we're all experts in our own fields, and that none of us is an expert in complexity. And for me, that's kind of a humbling, democratizing force. And in my eyes, democracy is one of those things that we all have to actively participate in and actively agree that we are doing, instead of just kind of taking our marbles to our own place and playing alone, if you will. So I think that's one of the important perspectives to keep in mind as we're all operating in this interdisciplinary environment. Is we all have our own vivid, unique experiences. We're all here for our own reasons, and we all have a shared interest in complexity. And it's really up to us to define what that is in this session. So for me, that's a key aspect to keep in mind. Yeah, and that that really adds to everything else we have here. That gives you your active listening. If everyone is an expert in this field, or everyone is an expert coming to the table rather. We respect their opinion on an equal level. Curiosity and openness as well, and remember everyone has their strengths. So thanks for the question.
And I see, Sean, you want to add a point there, please?
Yeah. I think, when we're thinking about this role-based party kind of coming together, right? The bard, the barbarian, the wizard, like all that. Don't have it where everyone is compared on the whole parable about what a monkey and an elephant are all trying to climb a tree and they're being judged on how well they can climb a tree. Like, don't go in with the assumption that everyone has to spend the exact same time on the exact same things, or embrace the differences and embrace the strengths, and don't compare everyone with that same kind of metric. It's make sure no one's burning out, make sure everyone is satisfied and feeling valued and respected in what they're doing, but don't expect everyone to match the same criteria. JP?
Yeah, keeping in mind the complex perspective on things, complexity is about nonlinearities. So somebody may contribute, one core piece of code that everyone else builds on, and it may take them, a minor amount of time, but that still can have equally meaningful contributions. Just like somebody could contribute 2 days worth of illustration to the project, and all these things come together to make the greater whole.
And this is why I'm going to circle back and emphasize my favorite is here. Number one, active listening, right? Because if all of this, we are just go, and not really in listening to understand, and just listening so that, let me focus on what I'm going to say next when they're done speaking. That's not where all of what we just spoke could happen. And so again, as we're speaking and hanging out, I am loving what you are sharing, you're expressing, what teams you want to form, where you want to head. And I encourage you to continue on, actively listen in two parts. Number one, of course, the actual thing of listening to somebody else. But number two, to your own voice as well. As you're noticing this, is there a new topic that you're like, you know what? I never thought I was interested in transportation, but since we can't travel, I am very curious about how that's going to change forever. Maybe I need to look into that. Or I wasn't interested in culture, but somebody who posted culture, I'm kind of curious because when, this person was speaking earlier, I was very curious about their perspective. Let me go check it out. Actively also listen to what your voice is saying. Because that's where you're going to probably notice that, hey, you know what? Nobody's talking about the need of design, but I'm actually a great graphic designer. Do you guys mind if I can help you out and step up on this? And that might give you clarity on where you can step in, support, align. Somebody who's probably going to be like, guys, I'm genius with timekeeping. Let me help you, help us optimize as a team. Let everyone step up and share. And as I said, that's probably going to be organic process. And Sean?
That agency is so important. I have to just double stress it, is because I've had people I was talking to and gather, and they're like, I'm kind of on a team. I'm trying to figure out how I can contribute. It's got to come from you. It's got to come from you being like, you know what? I'm really good at this. I'm really good at that. I see there's something that needs to be done. I will step up and do it. It can only come from you. You can't wait for the team to tell you what you need to do.
Absolutely. Sorry, I had a little meltdown moment because it is editable. Somebody almost deleted it. Well, it's okay. We fixed it. What's that?
Expectation violation, JP.
We are all good. I am prepared for all your situations. And so building on all of that, again, have fun at the most of it. This is a reminder. And as you continue to reflect on it, I want to share some additional advice for those who are newer, or even if you're veterans, in how you think about the team formation and problem solving together. So yes, we talked about kind of, be mindful of all of this, but like for those who are like, so like, okay, like I get that, like, what are the questions I need to work on? Like, what team problem are we like actually solving? So in addition to everything that you've been consuming and reflecting, break this down into these frameworks: who, what, when, why, how, where. I understand most folks, maybe the what, where might be mostly the internet at this point, but there's still some nuances, everyone, right? Like even the tools that we chose to use during this where has been different. And your where might be not just the internet, you want to be as specific. And so kind of to dive on that, the who, like what problem are you actually solving for who? Because that who stakeholder is different. Like in my case, I can say, which I do, is I help people be creative. But like if my who is like, am I helping for kids? Am I helping for teachers? Am I helping for like executives? Am I helping for those in international development? My what and when and all of that changes. And so that's really important to keep in mind, because often, again, I'm guilty as well as somebody who enjoys problem solving. We like, oh, we have this great idea. Let me jump into problem solving. But like, wait, Monica, like, who is this actually for? Like, how is this user going to benefit from what you say you want to problem solve? And can we just actually check, is this actually solving their problem, or is it just a Band-Aid? And so to build on that, I'm curious, like, Sean, like, I know you've also seen some examples. If you want to piggyback on, like, for somebody who's like, wait, I'm not really sure, how can I think in that mindset?
Yeah. I think, sorry, something that was already in my head that I was about to raise my hand on, I'm sorry, I'm not really going to answer your questions directly, is the who. It's just so important that I just feel like what I don't want to see Sunday is a team being like, I want to solve homelessness, and like, here's an app that like, that like is gonna help this community. It's like, hold on, like, who are you building this for? Have you talked to anyone that's actually feeling the problem that you are so motivated by? And that feedback and input is so important, because I don't want people intellectualizing it all and making it an academic exercise when at the end of the day, we are here to really help people. And that only happens when you empathize with them and when you talk to them and when their input is brought into your project.
Absolutely. And hence, to build on that, one nuance that I want to emphasize is that I understand, again, by Sunday, it's it's not like you're building a company, or that, you need to think about all the business model, but I still encourage for you to think about who is your user versus the payer. And that's really important. I mean, I think education is a perfect example. Your users of certain, like if you're doing youth education, is going to be probably the students, but the payers are likely going to be the parents or the teachers. And so you want to think about the wording of like, how are you actually solving the pain point for the teachers and the parents so that they pay for the programs for the students, right? So that sequence of thinking, similar to the homelessness, is important. Yes, the user might be homeless people in, let's say, California, from who's in this particular district, a particular type of mental illness situation or particular environment. But the payer, who's still going to pay for that? Your wonderful idea, who's going to help financially contribute to potentially make this come to life? That thinking process is really, really critical. And so connecting to that, I mean, JP, I'm curious, I know you've had a lot of thoughts last time as well. When we talk about the what's and the how, like, what advice would you also share on that next other pieces?
As regards to the what's and the hows, or the who's and the when's and the where's and the why's?
What's and the how.
Oh, the what's and the how.
How do we make sure that we're actually being in tune to the complex nuances, and how we solve the what and the how?
I think for me sometimes the how is where the fun happens, honestly, because when we're working through a problem, I think about what actually set me off on Complexity Weekend back in 2019 when I first joined was we were all together in a group, and we were sitting there and came up with this idea, and it was like bizarrely complexity, but it's like, could we make a program where we input a name and we get the average face, or could we like scan a face and get the average name from that? It's this weird kind of like this weird kind of problem, and we had no idea how to implement that, how to put that together. You know, but lo and behold, just from that really simple, just from that really simple kind of like, honestly, like almost a joke idea, it became, oh, well, we need somebody who does machine learning, and we need somebody who does machine vision. And lo and behold, one of our facilitators was an expert in like machine learning. And he's like, oh, and point on to this for machine vision. And it was just like from this joke thing, the hows became the project, really. And I thought that was like a really, really cool and exciting, like, oh, it's just, I was talking about tools versus, theories and things like that. That was just like pure tool. And it just like exploded up into this like really cool how. And then of course, like with that project, it became like, well, who is this for and what is this for? What are we even doing here? And it became this like, well, these things are really, really popular on, Facebook and social media and things like that. Like kids would go crazy over something like that. So that became like our what is this problem solving? It's just like, well, sometimes it can just be inspiring and just be like this really fun thing. Yes, I just gave a pure anecdote for my answer, but I think that through that experiential idea or experiential process, that's an example of sometimes the hows become your project, as well as I'm going to go solve homelessness, like. These are big problems. So, all of this is about exploring space of these problems. And maybe the idea to solve homelessness gets you a little bit closer to the real answer for that. I mean, that's kind of what the idea of a PhD is. You expand your knowledge until you know everything about it. And the PhD is like, just contribute a little bit more knowledge to that thing. So, Sean, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I actually wanted to highlight, JP, an edit you made to the registration form. The version you're seeing now has been edited by us in the background for a while. And I really liked what you tweaked on the question, because we were originally saying, what facilitators might you want to be connected to or something like that. And you kind of tweaked it into, what do you need to know to do this? Like, what are the gaps kind of in skills or something? And you made it much broader than a person, which I really like, because I agree with you. Like the how, especially in a community like ours, it might just appear. It might just appear in front of you. All you got to do is ask for it. So if you can articulate that gap without respect to person or anything yet, just like I need someone to help me with full stack development, and we need a website, certain things we're going to need, it might just materialize at that point.
Yeah, like sometimes like I'd like to talk to Elon Musk about rocketry, but sometimes like I just want to talk to a rocket expert.
And I think understanding and discussing about these nuances now is really, really important, because often as problem solvers, that's probably why we're all here, because we're like, oh, we don't want to just binge watch a movie this weekend. I want to problem solve this weekend. That's why you're all here, right? Like we're like wanting to make a difference, but let's not get too carried away in the how. Like make sure who and the why weights in to know, again, at the end of the day, the what and the how is the tool, and the when and the where. And so actually the image that I just brought in, for those who have not thought of it, is I think a beautiful way to frame about it, often in innovation, is this. I know I'm going to make it big and then it's all again as Sean draws the box. But convergence. The simple way to think about it is thinking, this is my project management hat, thinking about the time sequence of like how many hours I've left, or like where the timeline is. But you decide as a team, as your form, hey, the next hour or whatever, like 3 hours, we're not going to stress too much about like needing to like get too specific on the what and the how. Like we're going to go all out. Like rabbits, that's great. Like how would that work? How can we be eco-friendly? How can we like figure this out without traveling? Yes. And like take the yes and approach and explore as many possibilities at the very beginning, because you don't want to say, no, that's too expensive. Guys, that's great, but that's not really possible in my country. Like if we kept saying no, we're going to shut down the ideas and converge too early, too fast. And so the way I want you to visualize in your head is that even though it sounds crazy at the beginning, just keep saying yes and to explore as many different options, which is the divergent thinking mind. And with that, you can get to a point of like, okay, we got 100 ideas. Let's kind of pin down, what are the patterns? Okay, we're seeing patterns of like, these are like 10 different types on like utilization of like, going back to the homeless example, that can we figure out homeless problem solving with like online engagement? wait, but like they can't use the internet. Like, let's still figure out, like, do we start with the people who have at least a phone? Maybe we start with a text service, or maybe we start with a particular region that has like a citywide government support system. Now that we can think about even the what's in the house and the when's, the where more specifically, but again, start with the who and the why, start with divergence, and then converge through the process. Yes, Sean.
Sorry, I'm raising my hand so much. You're so on point that I just have to like tie it into everything. If you go to the program, you'll notice on the left-hand side of the program, there's a theme to kind of segments of the weekend. And what we've already been through Friday was the community and shared truth portion. We weren't emphasizing team formation. We were just getting to know each other, learning something. And then Saturday, so far today, has been a stage that we call forming, right? It's not us, it's a whole framework that you can look up. But forming has just been about getting to know each other, forming those team seeds, right? We're about to enter, after this live stream and on, with all the great facilitator sessions and gathers still to come, it's the storming phase, right? And this is kind of correlating to this divergent thinking. Just explore everything with your team. Explore every possible thing that might impact what you want to build, right? And that goes all the way up until Sunday. So just all the rest of today, just explore and have fun, right? Don't worry about converging. You have the norming phase for that starting Sunday, right? And then norming, and it goes all the way until the last stage, which is performing at around 3 p.m. When we do those presentations from the team. So you have all the way until then. Pace yourselves. Don't converge too quickly. You're not going to get to the type of diverse, interesting, innovative solutions that we're really aiming to produce here.
Absolutely. And hope you all caught the one key thing, which is ing. In process, all of this, there's a no final, like, okay, that I'm putting a dot, this is done. Storming, norming, we are all in the process. And so have fun, continue to build on it. And with that, I believe our time is already up, which I'm so sad, but that doesn't mean the end. We'll have more time together. Again, with that, I'm going to do a quick check-in as we were chatting. Look at all the conversations that's been continuing on. Really excited. Again, I hope you use this as a way to find one another, connect, express reminders to yourself. And again, you have this Jamboard link to remind yourself as you work with your team, what's something that you want to remind or reflect upon to stay connected. And so with that, kind of any final words of wisdom, JP, would love to start with you that you want to remind.
I mean, the wisdom is, with everyone here, really. I prefer to see myself as just kind of a leader from behind. I'm just like, yeah, everything up there looks pretty good. So I think, everything that we do in this space is good. Pace yourselves, be creative, and then actually bring back the rigor. I think those are everything's been said. So.
Love it. I'm just going to emphasize again, all learning process. If you are watching this, no matter what point it is, and rewatching it, just know that we're all here. Ask us questions. Sean, Dan, anything else from your side that you wanted to add before?
I just want to say one more thing, and as thank you, Monica. This is amazing. Like, you just knock it out of the park, masterclass of facilitation, and we appreciate it. And thank you,
Monica.
Thanks, Monica.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you.
Cool. So it is almost 1 p.m. and RJ, we know that you actually are going to be doing a gather session at 1 p.m. So I don't want to hold you up too much, but if you could just maybe give one key insight that you think is going to help be like a mantra that people can return to, whether they're watching it live or whether it's in replay, what would be like the one simple thing about team formation at this stage?
At this stage, I think right now I'm seeing a lot of the teams go through, get past forming into storming, and they're starting to do work. And I think with that, some of the things I heard brought up before was I liked, Monica said, I think it was the need to be heard. But I think I might like how JP put it better. I think how he put it might be better, which is we want loud wailing. I think was how he phrased it earlier. I think right now it's really important to norm how you give distress calls and realize that you don't have to do all the work yourself. There's going to be a lot of periods where we're all going async. It's really important to be able to give out distress calls and then respond to them.
Totally agree. Something you've taught me so much about, which is that it's not a panic until it is. and it's just better to take care of the small little perturbations and errors. So with that being said, RJ, thanks for being flexible and for the 2-minute guest star. Everybody who's watching it live and in replay, thanks so much for your attention. We hope that you'll return to the Jamboard, that you'll message people who indicated that they want to join a team, that you'll be finding all these awesome participants to join up with, and also coming to the facilitators or the organizers, posting through any of these mechanisms like I need a team or in general, if we can help you in any way. So we're all here for you. And RJ, best of luck with your session coming up right now.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Bye. Awesome. Everybody, thanks for watching this. In the next few hours in Room A and Gather, Richard McCallan will be talking about biomimicry. Room B will feature Paul Mastrand talking about an interactive session with pair breakouts. And Gather Room C, RJ will be there. We'll also have the office hours open. And for the rest of the day, there's just more sessions, office hours, finding time to work with your team, and including people from different time zones. So let us know how we can ever be of service. Other than that, thanks so much for watching.